Ever wonder how an NBA champion could end up behind bars?
Damn!
From courtrooms to basketball courts, I've tracked every angle of the story to bring you the most comprehensive breakdown.
A group of high-profile former pros facing years behind bars.
What type of fraud was committed? How was this all done? And who was everyone involved? Ladies and gentlemen, I'll be leaving no stones unturned in this video, so buckle up and brace yourselves.
Don't believe all that shit on the internet. I will have my day in court. They just mad because the black men got money, man.
In 2017, the plot was hatched by Terrence Williams, the mastermind behind this audacious scheme. Driven by the desire for quick, easy, and substantial wealth, Williams opted for a path of minimal effort with maximum gain, orchestrating an NBA health insurance fraud. To give you a bit of background on Terrence Williams, he was once a celebrated basketball talent, an exceptional athlete, and the 11th overall pick in the 2009 NBA draft. He was chosen just 4 spots behind the legendary Steph Curry, and in the same year as other notable players like Blake Griffin, James Harden, and DeMar DeRozan. NBA fans online have mixed feelings about him. Some call him a 2K menace, indicating him being an overpowered player in basketball video games. Others noted he had a great basketball IQ, just did not care much about playing, pointing to wasted potential. And there were those who described him as a classic bubble guy, too good for the minors, not good enough to be a pro, suggesting he was stuck between being a standout in the lower leagues and being a regular player in the pros. While he was far from being the best player in the NBA, Williams was still among the elite basketball players worldwide. Unfortunately, his personality often worked against him, holding him back from realizing his full potential. For example, here are some anecdotal fan opinions shared online. One fan remarked, "I've met him a few times and dude was a complete dickhead. There was talk about him threatening another player with a fire weapon. I know this was like 12 years ago, but dude seemed to actively enjoy being an asshole." Responding to this, another fan added, "He also did similar things on the nets. There were reports about him carrying a fire weapon and getting into it with staff and players." Furthering the discussion, another fan shared, "Yeah, this isn't surprising. I played against him regularly in high school and in AUU. He was a dickhead then too." Online reports seem to support the fan anecdotes about Williams. Add to this his pattern of frequently moving between teams in the NBA and international leagues, along with the previously discussed issues, and you arrive at one clear conclusion. Good hooper, but his head's not exactly on straight. But anyway, starting from 2017 through 2020, Williams enlisted several high-profile former NBA players into his money-making scheme. Among them was Sebastian Telfair, a former 5-star recruit and the 13th overall pick in 2004, the year Dwight Howard was drafted. Also involved was Shannon Brown, an explosive guard who secured back-to-back championships with Kobe Bryant in 2009 and 2010. Then perhaps the most notable recruit was Glenn Davis, better known by his nickname Big Baby. Davis was part of the team that clinched the 2008 NBA championship alongside Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, and Kevin Garnett. Here's a list of all the former NBA players who were implicated in the scheme. While you might not be familiar with many of these names, each one of these has played in the league at some point. It's truly baffling, isn't it? I mean, you might wonder why all these former NBA players would get involved in insurance fraud. Perhaps they were inspired by the clever heists in the movie Ocean's 11 or the Netflix series Money Heist. Whatever the reason, one thing is clear. Their decision was absolutely crazy. And when I say absolutely crazy, here's what I mean. You might think they were pulling in millions upon millions from this scheme, but in reality, their haul was quite modest. Collectively, they managed to secure $5 million over the 4 years the scheme was active. And with around 22 people involved, including 20 NBA players and a few other co-conspirators, the split wasn't exactly lucrative. If we do the math, dividing $5 million by the 4 years, then by the 22 participants, the sum each person received averages out to about $57,000 per year. Not exactly the jackpot you'd expect from such a risky endeavor. Again, this is based on the assumption that the profits were divided evenly, which they likely were not. But to give you an idea of how nonsensical this scheme was for the participants, consider their career earnings. Glenn Davis made about $46 million over his NBA career, Shannon Brown approximately $20 million, and Sebastian Telfair around $27 million. Now, I'm certainly no expert in financial planning, so take the following as just an example rather than advice. But just to put things in perspective, if someone were to invest $3 million in a relatively safe dividend stock yielding 4% annually, a conservative estimate, that would generate $120,000 a year in dividends. Yet, these players risked their reputations for what averaged out to just $57,000 a year through this scheme. The math just doesn't add up to the risks they took. Clearly, the earnings from this insurance fraud were minuscule compared to what these players had made throughout their careers, which likely explains why Glenn Big Baby Davis made these notable remarks a few months ago.
The whole situation, I never got any money.
Anyway, the way this entire NBA insurance fraud worked was pretty straightforward, involving a classic scheme of submitting fake medical claims to receive payouts from the NBA's health insurance plan. For instance, in 2017, Terrence Williams would send a bogus $19,000 invoice from Patrick Kazarian, an Encino-based chiropractor, and would receive $7,600 back from the NBA. Williams then encouraged other players to follow suit, and physicians like Kazarian, along with other doctors and dentists, would create phony documentation for treatments that never occurred, change them to credit cards associated with the health plan, and the NBA would issue more checks. When other recruits filed these claims, Williams managed all the paperwork and took a cut for himself. This scheme persisted for years. It started in 2017 and continued until around 2020 or possibly even into 2021. Next off, let's talk about how they got caught. So apparently, throughout the operation, numerous red flags appeared. These were not just minor oversights. The documents contained blatant misspellings of players' names and a series of grammatical blunders. These errors reveal an insightful detail that Terrence Williams evidently never bothered using Grammarly. Anyway, at one point, the NBA received a tip, perhaps from an insider or someone who spotted irregularities, which prompted a more thorough investigation into the situation. What they uncovered next was absolute concrete evidence of insurance fraud. For instance, Glenn Davis submitted claims totaling $132,000, including a supposed $27,200 for dental work at a Beverly Hills dental office on October 2nd, 2018. However, authorities found that he was actually in Las Vegas on that date and flew to Paris the same day using geolocation data from his cell phone to confirm his whereabouts. Another striking example involves Greg Smith. On December 20th, 2018, he submitted a $48,000 invoice for dental procedures allegedly performed in Beverly Hills, California. The problem? His box score from a basketball game in the Taiwanese League halfway around the world, recorded on the same day, shows he scored 11 points and grabbed 15 rebounds. They clearly didn't think things through. I mean, between the spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, and the blatant oversight of not being in the same cities, or countries for that matter, where the supposed medical procedures were taking place. Anyway, the aftermath of this whole incident resulted in not only considerable embarrassment, but also significant jail time. For example, Glenn Big Baby Davis was sentenced to 40 months in prison, while Will Bynum received 18 months. The chiropractor involved, on the other hand, was handed a 30-month sentence, while the ringleader, Terrence Williams, faced the harshest consequences with a 10-year prison term. The differences in prison terms were determined by the amount of money each individual attempted to defraud from the NBA, as well as their roles in recruiting others into the scheme. All in all, it's evident that this scheme was far from the smartest idea and has likely made things more difficult for ex-NBA players seeking to qualify for that insurance plan. Take, for example, Tony Snell, who recently expressed his desire to be signed by a team so he could reach the 10 years necessary to become eligible for insurance. This situation adds a layer of complexity and frustration for players like him who are legitimately trying to secure their future. You know, I just realized that there's something happening behind the scenes in the NBA. Consider these incidents: the Minnesota Timberwolves salary cap scandal in 2000, the Tim Donaghy referee scandal in 2007, the Donald Sterling scandal in 2014, the Atlanta Hawks ownership scandal in 2015, the Cleveland Cavaliers luxury tax scandal in 2017, the New York Knicks ticketing scandal in 2017, the 76ers Twitter scandal in 2018, the Jonte Porter scandal in 2024. It really does seem like there's always something unfolding behind the scenes in the NBA. And what's particularly ironic about all these incidents is that eventually they all get uncovered and dealt with by the NBA itself. I mean, it's no secret that the NBA has had its share of shady dealings under the table for decades. They just seem to cover their tracks a lot better. Probably have a team of lawyers who actually use Grammarly. Curious about what I'm talking about? Then you need to check out this video here, where I dive into all the dark secrets of the NBA.